Alright, a little extra video. Yeah, Broken Mac just made a video. I just posted one. Conceding the consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction. So he concedes that that's basically what life is made out of. Okay, it's just molecular chemistry. That's just doing this. Acquire the parts, produce another copy, produce it in a finite environment. So then the parts have to be stolen from other owners, which is the cannibalism. And then when you get into a psychology, you get the brain thing. The brain thing just gets completely motivated to do these three things, and it does it through being addicted to sources of that. Addicted to food every day and sex and whatnot. And that's our psychology. It's an addictive psychology. We're made deprivated. We're made to feel empty or alone or lacking, and therefore we will pursue what the DNA agenda demands. And so he's conceding that that's the mechanism. It's basically, he's conceded it's a Frankenstein monster, and and that's where we sort of left it. And then he's going to argue, I don't think there's any ambiguity about my opinion. If there was no human life on planet Earth, yeah, the button gets pressed without even a thought. I mean, you don't even have to give it a millisecond of thought. It's insidious. Any idiot who would leave the experiment running would have to be just that, an idiot. Okay, it's just animals trapped on an island consuming each other. You wouldn't let your cousins be trapped on an island where they eat each other. And yeah, that's what animals are doing, and it's disgusting and horrible, and it's pointless, and they're not accomplishing anything, and they're not going to do anything but do that, and it's it's idiotic. Anybody who justifies it is stupid. I mean, just plain fucking dumb. If I made a machine that did exactly this, consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction, if I made a machine that did that, and I set it loose in the universe, people would call me the worst, most evil force that had ever been known in the universe. I would be, Darth Vader times a million. Anybody who would infect another planet with life, what would be the logic of it? Go seed some other planet with life so it can sit there for 2 billion years and eat each other and eventually build a McDonald's. I mean, what the fuck is that? Who would be stupid enough to think that makes sense? So yeah, you've just conceded my argument completely. Fine. Okay, good. So we're done arguing. What is your happy ending here? So anyway, his argument is that somehow we're making huge progress. Yeah, in the last 100 years, we found out a lot of stuff. We learned a lot of stuff. I state that as a good thing. See, look how much we learned. But part of learning is understanding that, oh yeah, we're just fucking psychology, and yeah, we're just chasing bullshit, sports heroes and all that crap. So with all our learning, we're still doing the same thing, aren't we? We're still playing the champion game. We're still glorifying the heroes. We're still doing consumption, reproduction, and cannibalism in a pretty disgusting way. Most people are the slaves, not the owners, and so if you really look at the raw numbers, yes, human beings live longer, so that's a good thing. They don't have to go through the transition of birth and death as often. But beyond that, they're taking a bunch of antidepressants, and they're living like pigs, and working like horses, and whatever you want the analogies to be. Life has not necessarily got much quality to it. There's a lot of quantity. 7 billion people now. Totally irresponsible, totally incompatible with the resources of the planet, can't be sustained if everybody thinks they're entitled to play this traditional family bullshit game, this imposition of life. Doing the reproduction thing on Cannibal Island. They're reproducing on Cannibal Island. That's really dumb, and they're only doing it because they're addicted to their little egocentric satisfactions. I have to produce a copy of me, and it's not going to be a copy of you. It's more likely to be me, you fucker, and you have no right to put me back here. Anyway, that's a whole side issue. Yeah, and look, I've pointed out the whole game is a zero-sum game. You've heard those words, Broken Max, so there's no point in you talking like I somehow haven't answered the question. I've pointed out it's a zero-sum game. And if you perfect it for consciousness, I've explained how you could do that. all right, with virtual reality. You can create a fail-safe environment where you totally control how much deprivation the organism will experience, so you maximize the equation between deprivation and satisfaction. So you have the least deprivation for the highest amount of gratification. And then, yeah, okay, if you want to play the game, go play the game, because it's sort of harmless. I'll concede that point. It's not. It's certainly it's the 99.99% solution. It might not be. It still might be stupid. It still might be risking a suffering that we're not fully appreciating, but the risk is low. But yeah, I'm still going to say it's stupid. I'm still going to say it's a contrivance. It's just again satisfying an addiction, a silly notion of some need that is going to be served, and no need is going to be served if human beings spend another 1,000,000 or 2,000,000 years, whapping the wheel and spinning around in their cage in their little wheel. It's not going to make one bit of difference. The universe is going to end the human species. It's going to end. And it will accomplish nothing. It'll make nothing permanent, and it's been there, done that. So it's just, there's no real point in doing it. It won't serve a purpose. It won't accomplish anything. It'll just serve need that you didn't need to create. Again, I guess that's another one of these simple little things, like these 4 words. The other simple little phrase is, life doesn't serve any need that needs to exist. Life creates need. It doesn't serve. It doesn't satisfy need. It creates need. Yeah, that's a simple enough way to put it. So respond to that simple truth. So yeah, I guess I don't need to. I'll play the last bit of this. What the hell? Yeah, that's close enough to the end.
Cancers and illnesses.
So again, he thinks that we're going to use genetic engineering and all this other stuff to make our lives all wonderful and perfect. And every evidence is that we're not going to solve the birth control problem, and we're not going to do anything about the social inequity problem, the haves and the have-nots. So all this talk of all this rich technology, we know where the technology ends up going. It creates daisy cutters, it creates cruise missiles, it creates nuclear bombs. We've got the evidence that we're willing to go there. And there's no evidence that there's any barrier in the future to stop it from getting worse and worse and worse, and that the violence towards each other is going to get worse and worse and worse, that we are going to end up being radioactive cockroaches in a sense, that human subsistence, that's all there's going to be, is subsistence humans left on planet Earth. There's not going to be any graceful or dignified living. And that's the future you assholes keep investing in. That you keep imposing on the future. You haven't created a safe environment. You haven't created a safe way to live, and yet you keep investing. You keep putting more. You keep building the building taller when you have no architecture, no rational reason to believe that the foundation can support the structure you've built. No rational reason whatsoever. And you keep advocating that people keep building on top of it. Keep building, keep building. It's not going to work. It's going to fail dismally, horribly, disgustingly. And I advocate, yes, I'm going to knock it down. If I could, I would knock it down before you put more victims on top of it. It's just a simple equation. Yes, stop Frankenstein before he makes more monsters, because you're not going to create a world where there'll be anything else but Frankenstein monsters.
Has any real effect on his equation. It's impervious to improvement.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Again, yes, you've conceded the equation. You haven't provided anything else. What else is there? I mean, it's not my fault that that's what life is. So if you say life is something else of merit, of real value, not contrived value, not just psychological perception of golden cheese, of hero worship, of soap opera addictive nonsense. If you have some evidence of some real accomplishment and value, then provide it. Otherwise, yes, you're just arguing about how much of the milk you're going to clean up. I'm going to argue the milk should have never been spilled, and you should stop the spillage as soon as possible. So yeah, I would never put spilt milk on another planet.
Because you can't ever achieve that balance within his system, because he does include nature, red, and tooth and claw as being.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, yeah, I don't know how you could ever believe anything else. When have I ever indicated any reverence for nature and the system of evolution? When have I ever said anything good about those 2 billion years of sentient life tearing each other's flesh off? When have I ever said that was a great, it was well worth it? I've never even come close to indicating that. So I don't know how you got this misimpression that something else was possible.
Essentially the deciding factor. So unless humans are going to somehow invent a way where the wolf no longer hunts down and brutally kills the rabbit and eats it alive or whatever.
Or the rabbit gets a disease and goes blind and, goes through a whole bunch of, a long, protracted, painful death. The microbes. There's all kinds of evils out there. It's just the fact that as long as you keep putting sentience at jeopardy, it will endure the horror. That's because there is no mechanism in nature that gives a fuck. It has no balance. You just keep talking about a balance. There's no fucking suffering balance. There is none. Nature doesn't care how much suffering you experience. It just cares, or all sentient life experience. It just cares about who wins the fight. And it doesn't matter how bloody or ugly the fight gets. It doesn't. We see it in organisms. There's organisms that produce billions of offspring every year. Billions, and only 1 in a million will live. I mean, those kind of numbers are part of the reality of nature's judgment. So it's horrific. It's not even well, anyway. He used another word before. He said, this is just about what humans are doing, and humans, eating animals and all that kind of stuff. And he described it as frosting on the cake. No, it's shit on the shit. Okay? It's not frosting on any fucking cake. It's shit on shit. And we can prevent our shit. We're smart enough to know better, and so I'm just arguing we should do better. Obviously, the amount of suffering human beings are either experiencing or imposing is a small percentage of the amount of suffering being endured on planet Earth. But it's the amount we can certainly control our behavior. I would argue that we can also control nature, but that's a whole nother issue.
Then you're never going to, you're never going to resolve the suffering inherent in life. So I could be wrong,
Well, we won't do what's necessary. Like I said, if you wanted to preserve this thing, if there was some cause or reason to think the experiment's doing something valuable, that our intelligence will do something besides invent another ingredient for the special sauce on your beef burgers, fine. The road there, though, requires you to create this perfection. You have to try to get to the zero of the zero-sum game. You have to try to find a fail-safe way to build your world. And humans aren't even trying to do that.
This is what I get from Inmentum's philosophy. I'm not trying to misrepresent him. I'm not trying to distort it. I'm trying to honestly grapple with the basic truth of his position.
Yeah, well, you're not grappling with it, though. You're just saying that, okay, that's the way it is, so what? You're saying it's consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction. You're basically saying, yes, it's a stupid heroin addict who's, just causing horrible mayhem, destruction, and pain and suffering with everything he touches, and you're saying it's okay. That's all you're doing. You're just saying it's okay. That's all.
Is it that Inmentum is saying?
Oh.
Is he saying that life is unbearable? Just that's it,
Well, I've made the point, okay? The system is made out of negative, okay? The only positives in the universe are illusionary. They're not real positives. The positive is eliminating a negative, satisfying a deprivation, feeding an addiction, serving a need, okay? Those are the only real positives. and they're basically made out of eliminating a negative. So the negative came first. All you can do is try to erase as much of the negative possible, and that's the game we're playing. It's zero sum, can't be won. There is no real positive to ever be produced because there is no fundamental need for us to exist, because we can serve no fundamental purpose. We can only create a purpose by creating need that needs to be satisfied, and that's all. It's spilt milk. There's nothing it can accomplish. It's nothing good it can do. All we can do is clean it the fuck up.
Because of this premise, there's no way to fix this. I mean, because Inventum has said, I'm going to wrap this up, but he has said, you know, that there's the button pushing on the one end, and then there's all these other, you know, these other possible fixes. But
I've made the point that, like I said, if the human race had if there was real evidence that the human race had any interest of doing the radical change that it's going to require to create a more perfect world for consciousness to exist in, then yeah, I would say go ahead and do the experiment, okay? Because this is a profoundly interesting thing taking place on planet Earth. This consciousness thing is, I hate to even use the word, it's just a stupid word to use, but yeah, it's rare. I think it's incredibly rare that this ever happens in the universe, and it'd be a shame to squander taking it to a more complete finish. I think the finish line is where we're already there, okay? I think the last 100 years we have figured out what the game is. It is all psychological bullshit. It is just spilt milk, but it'd be good to verify that. But we're not even going to get there. We're going to turn it into absolute carnage, cockroach hell before we ever get there. And that's the liability of your placating the DNA, placating pop culture notions of accomplishment, the old jargon of the God who said, and God said it was good. Okay, well, why did he say it was good? Yes, because it was a Garden of Eden, okay? God wasn't talking about nature when he said it was fucking good. Alright, so let him make nature, and let him do 2 billion years of experimenting and talk about that being good. Let him face the real Frankenstein monster and say, and Frankenstein said it was good. No, I don't fucking goddamn think so.
Really don't see any other possible fixes. I don't see anything that if Inventum doesn't acknowledge any of this progress that's been made.
Again, I acknowledge the progress. I acknowledge that it even creates something called potential for us to do something. But I'm also accepting the fact that there's no evidence that we will use the best of it. We will allow the psychology, the addicted mentality, the stupidest parts of ourselves to control that technology, abuse that technology, and just fuck the whole game. Because we're not going to use it intelligence. The intelligence it took to create it is not the intelligence you need to use it. All right, it's just that fucking simple.
And the potential for progress, then I don't.
Yeah, again, your progress would be what? We'll make people even more reproductive than they are already, right? And make them live longer than they are already, which is a huge liability socially. Who's going to do the work? Who's going to feed them? Who's going to take care of them? Where's your solution to those problems? Where are you going to get the energy from? You don't have those solutions. You don't have those fixes.
See realistically, what other fixes Inventum could be proposing, you know.
Well, look, it's a simple, where can you miss the argument? It's a simple fix to stop eating animals. We can all do that. That's easy to do. We can all not raise children to have our same addictions. That's easy. We can stop all cigarette smoking and stop all meat eating tomorrow and for the future. Nobody has to acquire these addictions. We can create realistic and reasonable obstacles to them without... And look, look how we solve the problem with cigarettes. That's right. We sit there and tax the people who smoke. Instead of stopping people from smoking, we tax the people who smoke. Okay, we can't even do that with any ethical decency. Instead, we're just going to exploit people. So on no issue is it ever done right, or done for the right reasons, or done the right way. Human beings do it the wrong, cheap, weaselly manner. That's what runs the system. The weasels own the system. The ignorant run the system, asshole. The ignorant do the breeding, asshole.
Anyway, cheers.
Yeah. Whatever. So long. Aloha. Whatever. Fuck you. Yeah, there. That's a good one. Anyway, the end. I guess that's the end of the video now. That's the end of his video. No comments yet, so can't really comment on the comments because there aren't any yet. Well, maybe see. Let's see. Oh, let's see if there's anything there. No, nothing there. All right. Until next time. Blah 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 blah.